Listen, can I tell you one thing about the Arbiter Verband? I must tell you about it. That was only, but I want to tell you about the Arbiter Ring. Now, the Arbiter Ring was a group of men here. There was about 100 of them. They were not Zionists, and they all believed they were all going to go back to Russia and live in Birobidzhan.
Right.
Am I right?
You are.
And some of them were very good friends of my father's, and he used to have such arguments with them. It was pathetic, but they didn't listen. This is before the war, before the Second World War. And I went to the shul to learn to write and read Yiddish, because it was on York Street in this old building next to a very good variety store, Salvages, which is still there, another place. And I loved it. We had a teacher named Mr. Brick, who was the most magnificent teacher that anybody ever thought they'd ever have in this whole wide world. And he taught us, he really taught us Yiddish. But the trouble is, 50 cents a week didn't carry it, and then it went broke, and they had to close it up. So I learned for 2 years, and I learned to read and write Yiddish. I used to go home and speak Yiddish, and my father would speak English to me. He was very affluent in English. And I'd say to him, why did you send me there? If you're not going to speak Yiddish to me, I'm not going to go anymore, you know. I thought it was like it was wrong. However, he did what he had to do. So, and I can remember people that went to shul with me. I just got a picture from a friend of mine in L.A. who sent me a picture of the class before I started. I couldn't get over it. There's people in there that I knew. They were older than me, but I knew them all. I picked them all out, and I wrote down their names so it won't be forgotten. And it's magnificent, just magnificent. Anyway, the whole darn thing is that the shul went, but at least the Arbiter Ring did one good thing. They taught a lot of kids Yiddish from my generation. But they were not Zionists, and they gave them a lot of trouble. But after the war, all of a sudden, they turned, and they became the People's Order or some darn thing. They don't call it Arbiter Ring anymore. And it's very active and quite Zionistic. Not in any religious matter, but the country has to be ours. That's all. And they're not.
Was there ever a group in Hamilton called UJPO? Was there ever a group called the United Jewish Peoples?
No, United Jewish Peoples are no.
Okay.
Not that listen, there was also Young Judea here.
Uh-huh.
I belonged to Young Judea when I was 9 years old. Everybody else was 11. Why did my father push me? He always pushed me where it's going to be. Albert Feldman was the leader. Remember Albert Feldman on Amelia Street? He was the leader. And he was wonderful. And I was always a tall, skinny kid, so I fitted in, sort of. But the girls were 2 years older than me. At that time, 2 years is a lot. And I didn't feel really right. But that's where I learned how to be more of a Zionist than what I ever imagined I'd be. Anyway, Albert, he carried on for years. And then afterwards, we belonged to the AZA, the B'nai B'rith. That started. And then Mrs. Herskowitz started the Hadassah for girls, and I belonged to the first group of the Hadassah. And, she used to have a meeting every Sunday afternoon at her house, and she'd bake bulkas with cinnamon. I still taste them. We all went because I think we liked her bulkas. And we were a group. There was Layla Levy. Remember Layla? She was a cousin to you. Layla and Sadie Rosen, Cookie Stein, Cookie Rosenblatt. There was Lillian Sutton, the twins, the Barnett twins from the shoe stores. Leo Barnett, the sisters who were 10 years younger than he was.
What about Dolly and her sisters?
Dolly, they were younger. They were older than us. They were your aunt, Mrs. Rosen and Mrs. Stein. They were a good 15 years older than we were. They were gorgeous. They were the most, you never saw women so good looking like they were. Dolly was good looking, but she was shorter. They were tall and stately. I just loved them, and they were so nice. Listen, I used to go to the club sometime, and George, I guess he'd be your Uncle George, he'd come over to me and say, hello, Parola. Like he knew me from the time I was a little girl. He'd say, oh, it's so nice to see you. I remember you so well. And I'd say, from where? I'll tell you where. my father sang in the choir at the Beth Jacobs Synagogue on Park Street, and I went with him. I learned all the liturgical music. I could have gone on the road as a chazan. It was wonderful.
They had a choir.
Oh, a wonderful choir. And every Saturday night after Shabbos, my father and I would walk up from our house on Wellington Street, and we'd go up to Charlton Avenue where Cousin Levinson lived. And he'd come in, and it was always dark in there because you didn't turn a light on until after, And we'd go into the kitchen, and Mrs. Levinson would make tea for my dad and a piece of honey cake, and I'd sit there and they'd talk about the shul, and about what they're going to learn. And he was a wonderful teacher, Cousin Levinson. He was a rabbi as well as a chazan, and he was wonderful. He loved everybody, and he really loved my father. That's all I can say, because he knew how my dad felt about everything. I wish my father would have had. My dad was not a businessman. He was an academic, and that was more important to him than the whole wide world. So. Good. Listen, I loved him. That's all. I miss him to this day. However, the shul on the Beth Jacob was sold, I think, to Greeks. I'm not sure, but anyway, they built a new one in '50. It opened in '54 on Aberdeen Avenue, and it was quite posh. I'm going to tell you. Without your family, it wouldn't have been, but there it is, and. Things changed, and I was growing up, and I didn't pay so much attention to things. But then there was the Anshe Sholem. The Anshe Sholem was a little shul on Augusta Street, a nondescript little building with a beautiful round Mogen David in the front. There's a picture of it in the foyer there at the new place. The priest from St. Charles used to deal with us. Used to come in to buy different things for his church, and he said to me, "Do you know that I've got that beautiful Star of David in our church?" I said, "What?" He said, "I want you to come to see it." They took it out when they wrecked the building, and they took it to that church and installed it there. Can you imagine? Anyway, the Anshe Sholem, I was there the day Rabbi Baskin came with his new wife, and I thought, how's he going to make a living here? There's 60 members or something. Larry was going to the Sunday school then. He was 4 years old. And I thought, how is this going to happen? But it happened, and things went on, and it got better. So you have to have hope, don't you? Without hope, you can go. My dad used to say, you say in Yiddish, though, that without hope, everything is lost. With hope, you can conquer the world.
Do you remember how he would say it?
He said it in Yiddish.
Okay.
I wish I could remember exactly I don't remember exactly what he said it. What the word he used for hope was hatikva.
Or Hoffnung.
Yeah, hatikva is the word for hope.
Mm-hmm. In Hebrew.
Yeah, in Hebrew.
Right.
And he'd say something about without hatikva, their Leben is garnished. Mit hatikva kem and the ganze Welt überkommen. I remember this, how he used to say, and I used to listen to him, and I thought he was saying the truth. I hope he was. Maybe he was. I've reached 88, so I can't complain. But
What, are you 88 now?
yeah.
Oh, you don't look more than 72.
Oh, thank you. But I feel 108 sometimes. I've had a lot of grief. I looked after my husband for 7 years. I was his caregiver, and then he died, and I miss him, and I have to come to terms with it. Sure. And it's not easy. And we were married 66 years. It's not a day. And we knew each other from the time we were kids. He was in my class in high school. He was a year older than me.
Wow.
And he taught me to ice skate, to skate backwards and to twirl at Victoria Park in the winter. Isn't that something? I think I was all of 8 or 9 years old.
Wonderful. When you turn it off.
Anyway, I don't want you to...
Pearl, you're wonderful. Yeah.
Who had... The teenage boys joined, and they were a bunch of nice kids. They were all in my crowd, and we had such good times and good dances and good parties, and it was wonderful. And then they became members of the B'nai B'rith, and I don't know what's happened to the B'nai B'rith here. It doesn't seem to be... If it wasn't for the bowling, I think they'd all go go somewhere. My son Larry still belongs to the bowling. He still goes. He loves it. But it's amazing how but this B'nai B'rith connected all these kids up very strongly. But you know, time has gone on and people are gone, and I don't know the young people anymore. My grandchildren, they're not kids, 31 and 35. They're in Toronto. They don't want to be here. What is there here? I say there's a lot of stuff here if you look for it, but they don't want to. They want everything. Here it is, right in front of my nose. I don't want to work for it. Isn't that awful?
I have another 5 minutes of tape.
I'm sorry,
Let's
okay.
wrap up.
Well, let me just tell you one more thing. There's organizations even now, like from the Jewish Center, and I hope that they do the right thing with that building. I don't know, I can't say if it's good or bad because I never did like that. I felt that it wasn't accessible for the children to come. The older people manage, but for children it's not the right place. That's all. And I hope they'll do something about it. Because buses are impossible. You're not going to get buses. And so that's another thing that's wrong. But you got to make it right. Just because it's wrong, it doesn't mean it's going to stay wrong, does it?
You're right.
So any other organizations? Or
Now look at we belong to the, oh, I got to tell you. I want you to have this.
Really?
This is the Beth Jacobs Social Circle, and you will know some of the people in here. My aunt is in here. There she is. Sam Pollock. A whole lot of people. A lot of them are gone. Bella Leibovitz, Bella Miller. Oh, there's so many here. 1927. These were the Beth Jacobs Social Service.
Social Circle.
Social Circle, and they were known, and you're going to laugh, and I hope you'll remember this name. They were known as the Gazoozis.
Oh, wow.
And they used to come to my grandpa's house on Wellington Street, roll up the carpet, turn on the Victrola, and dance till the floor nearly fell in. And they had such a good time, and I was their mascot. I also went to the people on Victoria Avenue, Shulam Wright's family. Everybody in that family were a friend of my relatives. My mother, my aunt, my uncle, everybody had somebody in their family, and I went there with them. And now the new rabbi at Anshe Shulam, his grandmother was Eva Wright, who I used to sit on her lap. Can you imagine? And it's so real. It's so Mr. Bars, who lived on West Avenue, he had a family too who took part in so many things in Hamilton. I don't know where they are now. A lot of them are gone, I guess. But this here, the Gazoozis, you got to have this.
I will, thank you.
And
That's nice. Can I see that? Let me just see it.
Gazoozis.
the Gazoo. Now my uncle gave me these Gazoozis. Were not just plain people. Look at this. Look at this photograph album.
Oh, wow.
These people are the Gazoozis. And there's various pictures there where they went on hikes and they went on, and I want you to take that too.
Thank you. So these are all the Gazoozis?
The Gazoozis.
The whole album is Gazoozis?
Yeah, they're all just about.
Wow.
These were all taken in, look at this, all of them on the hikes. This is what they did. This is their social life.
What year was this?
Oh, I guess it was just in the early 20s.
Where would that be taken?
That was taken on the way up the mountain when they used to hike. Look at my aunt.
I have pictures like this in my house.
Look at my aunt. And she was beautiful. And the men there were nice looking men. Listen, they were all dressed. They were all nice.
Yeah.
Nobody had any money, but they were nice people. And they were very, very wonderful Jewish people.
Who took these pictures?
Who?
Who took these
My
pictures?
Uncle Sam Buchalter. My Uncle Sam Buchalter, first of all, he was a fruit peddler. Then he turned and he's an antiques restorer. He made all this stuff for me. And he was also in a used furniture. But just after the war, he made a lot, Saul Buchalter, Sophie Buchalter.
Who's this?
I think that's my aunt, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Look at a lot of these pictures.
Who's that?
I don't know. I can't tell you. There's some in there I really don't know who they are. It might be my grandfather's second wife. I don't know for sure.
Hard to
But
keep
anyway,
track.
look at the way that.
There's so Billy.
Can you imagine that? But look at that. Look at Sam Pollock, Mr. Big Shot.
Billy, I swear I have pictures like this in my basement I took from Beth Jacob.
This is my Aunt Esther, book altar. Look at them all. He was a good-looking man. Oh, Rosenberg. He was a good. They were all Bella Miller, from the shoe store, you know. Honestly, I look at all these people and I knew
So
them.
these were like they were all about partying. That's like,
They were all the executive of the Gazuzi.
so they were. It wasn't like a charity group. They got together for socializing, for parties.
They don't know. They were from the Beth Jacob. They kept the shul stirred up.
Absolutely. Put this back.
Listen, they had a wonderful Sunday school at the shul. Not Rabbi, what was his name? He was a lawyer, Robinson, whose name was, and he was the president of the principal of the Sunday school. And when I was 2 years old, my father taught me to recite in Yiddish. He had, you know what they say, er hat sich upgegangen mit mir. He really, really.
He enjoyed you.
And oftentimes I get things coming through my head where I remember exactly the poetry, and one of them I got to recite it for you. It's called Die kleine Mama. Auf dem Schwell sitzt der Ketzele. Weint sie miau, ich will a Mama. Geh ich heraus von Haus und sag ihr, Ketzele, wein nicht, ich will sein dein Mama. Nimm ich hier rein in Haus und leg ihr schlafen und sag, schlaf Ketzele, ich bin dein Mama. Now I said that when I was 2 years old.
You get that?
I got that.
That's beautiful.
Auf een hoge berg, stehen op haar Deitchen met die lange beitchen. Hoge Männer zijn zij, kurze Kleider trugen zij, Bier in de Flaschen, Mäh in de Taschen, Kinder in de Wiggelig, scheinen wie die Ziggelig. Mäh, mäh, mäh.